right. Welcome to your view with me on JJ Tabane. We are coming to you live from Linden here in Johannesburg on a big political night here in South Africa. The State of the Nation address, of course, getting off to a bumpy start out in the mother city, but of course the president speaking for close to 2 hours of a list, a laundry list of new announcements and promises. But the question is it sort of old wine in new wineskins, or or vice versa? You be the judge tonight. I've got a range of brains gathering here tonight. Some familiar faces, some not, but all friends of Newsroom Africa gathering tonight to come and help us understand what is the real state of the nation. Of course, they will be weighing in throughout the night until midnight. So do stay tuned. Go and put that kettle on and put your coffee ready, because we're going to really dissect it all here at Newsroom Africa. So do, because we welcome your views continuously. You can send us your WhatsApps. You can also tweet us at JJ Tabane at Newsroom 405 tonight throughout the evening with your own views. So we'll be taking some of those comments as we go through the evening. So do welcome to your view tonight, special edition of our first intersectoral dialogue. We'll be starting with a short panel discussion at the table there with Lebogang Peku, as well as Joseph Mapongo, as well as Andile Nomlala, who are going to help me first to just lay the basis, and we'll go straight into the audience discussions, an all-nighter here on your view. Stay tuned. Okay, welcome back to your view. Now let's go straight into Joseph Mapongo. Sorry to call you Joseph. How are you? Fine. Well, welcome to all of you, and thank you for spending the whole evening with us. Thank you so much. I think it's our first time here on your view. Thank you so for coming through. And of course, I welcome everybody who's joining. Just remember to introduce yourself when the mic comes to you. For our viewers, quite a lot of you. Familiar faces and not, but thank you so much for being here. Please kick us off. Anything new? If South Africans, knowing the status, the hunger, the unemployment, and all of this, the load shedding, etc., set in front of their TVs tonight, minus the theatrics, the president starts speaking, is there anything that can give them hope that some kind of a pathway to the future has been said tonight?
So, I mean, he said a lot about youth unemployment. We've heard that before. He said quite a bit about anti-corruption. We've also heard that before. He mentioned the agricultural sector. We've also heard that before. He mentioned something on land and the expropriation bill, which is yet to be finalized. We've also heard this before. He mentioned performance management contracts for, ministers and at local government level. Again, we've heard all of this before. He mentioned he left the aeropolitan cities this year, and he gave us new digitized cities somewhere in Lanzaria.
A smart city, a new city.
Smart city, clever city, or whatever we want to call it. And again, I think it's just I think we were talking during the break, and it's really a remixed version of many things that we will have, many ideas that have been floating, social cohesion, the social compact as well. So what is a social compact? And this idea that there's a collateral partnership and a mutually beneficial partnership between key social players, without an appreciation that our power relationships are not the same. So the responsibilities of a state cannot be the same as the responsibilities and the abilities of an NGO. I think that's absolutely unreasonable. And I think for me, the phrase that did not pay was tighten your belts. And I think for a country that's been in different levels of recession and depression, socially fragmented for over 12 years in different ways, that's a quite distasteful remark.
To say tighten your belt.
Yeah, no, I mean, when the Zondo Commission is there trying to repatriate missing billions at this moment, whose belt is supposed to be tightened? Who is supposed to, find one more hole and say, okay, I'm going to have one less chicken drumstick because others stole the whole farm? I don't think I thought that was in quite poor taste and a bit tone deaf.
Andy, was it a total rehash, or was there something new there? For example, the whole issue of taking responsibility to say we have not done everything we could have done, although it's not just us who are at fault, everybody else must also find a way to take responsibility. Was that sort of a new tone usually that you would not expect from government, or there was nothing new in the whole thing?
Thanks, JJ. I think we must try to cut the president some slack a bit.
Okay.
Look, the situation is dire. We are in a crisis mode. And the gentleman is trying with all he has to make things work. Unfortunately, the environment he operates in with his own party and the environment that he operates in within the country are all giving difficulties. The one good positive thing I can take and we can take as the BMF, and I think we will support him on, and we made a call many years ago, is the creation of the Sovereign Wealth Fund. I think that is a very good start in the sense that we need to concentrate.
Simplify it to somebody sitting at home who's broke. Look, Sovereign Wealth Fund, what is it?
Look, I don't know which shape are they going to take it, but in the BMF, we argued very strongly that the loose resources where, for instance, you have the renewable energy sector that is new, and the equity position that gets given to individuals on a free carry basis who are black, that can be diverted to the state. We need to have a state earning extra resources from the legal other opportunities in our economy, particularly in the renewable sector, the mining. We can take equity positions on the vendor finance model, even with the banks. So you sort of softly nationalize at 5% position. You could nationalize and get some other revenue outside the revenue that we generate from taxes. And I think another positive thing that the president mentioned, I don't know how many times, I'm glad I didn't go to Cape Town this time around, by virtue of the things that happened. But the other positive thing that the president mentioned today is moving the spending of government away from the consumption spend to production spend and activity-based spending. Now, what that does is that it would obviously, the infrastructure that government is planning to put would enable investment in our country, and it will increase our productive capacity.
But the president 3 years ago mentioned the 800 billion investment spend and on infrastructure. What is new?
No, our responsibility as BMF and the rest of the civil society is to actually pin the president on some of these pronouncements. But we can't then say, by the virtue that they are being made, that these pronouncements are not progressive. They are progressive.
No, not progressive, but that they are not new, because the people are expecting to say, here's a program of action, right, against which you can be judged. So if 3 years ago they talked about 800 billion rand spend, in your assessment, how far are we in spending that?
It's not necessary.
A new one.
It's not necessary, JJ, to come with something new. Actually, you need something that is tried and tested. The problem we have, and the BMF has called on it, is that we know the what. The problem is we need to now focus on the how. And the president, unfortunately, and I don't expect him to be too detailed, because he has mentioned that there's a finance minister who will put budget into those plans. And we expect, all we need to do as civil society and business is to pin the president into implementing these things. But we don't really want a wholesale new pronouncement on things that really don't matter. What matters the most now is that he is outlining that we can give our economy an opportunity to
So the ministers will come with the details. So it sounds like you should have a SONA once in 5 years and allow the ministers to tell us the details. Joshua?
Yeah, 2 issues only that I want to outline. The colonial system is alive and well. It took the colonizer 200 years, if not 300 years, to build us where we are. Right now, we elect each other into politics, which for me is a playground of infidels and beg carriers and system maintainers. No matter how many cobwebs we clean up in the wall, the spider still sits on the wall to put more cobwebs. I look at the SONA opening. Our own fellow black brothers marching stupid little uniforms with little trumpets and etc. Literally like we're in 1800, the same colonial system, marching to parliament, a small little knob carry, hell knows what it represents, people following a piece of a stick and whatever, and we're out there. That scenario for me tells us that the colonizers themselves are sitting at the back and say, we have put custodians to run the system. So I want to maybe just to step back a little bit, all of us, as a country, not a country, as a country, we need to sit back a little bit and look at this scenario very well, that we put our politicians into place who don't have money of their own, who are trusting on business to sponsor their politics. So let's allow and agree that all politicians are captured, because you can be bought for a price. As long as someone gives you the money, they can run you. The legislative system is appointed by the politicians, another space. Here we are as intermedia, propaganda and etc. Come back to the common sense. Are we really interested in building a South Africa we want to see 400 years from now? Or we are modeling our economy according to America or Britain or Europe or China? That's number one. So before we can begin to start talking about our democracy, let's study democracy from Ghana right up to South Africa. Let's look at case studies of success of this democratic system. I would have loved to engage the gentleman who was here prior to me, the governance gentleman from the university. And I wanted to look him in the eye and say, you tell him about governance. Are you serious about governance in terms of putting indigenous government system, hybridize them with the Roman Dutch law? And tell me all of us look like Romans and Dutch. And I watched with disgust at a bunch of monkeys. Sorry for the language. I call them monkeys under the pretext that a group of politicians, a group of monkeys is called a parliament. That's English. You have a swarm of bees, you have a herd of cattle, but a group of monkeys is called a parliament of monkeys.
Right, can you just pause it there and take some water? I'll come back after the break to continue there. Are we starting at the wrong place? And Joshua is trying to say, let's step back. Are we starting at the wrong place? Is there's something in the speech for you that is beginning to shift the fundamentals to change, for example, the nature of the economy, or is everything just tinkering on the sidelines? And Andile is saying, no. You know, in fact, there's no need for anything new. You've got to be talking about how do we implement the how part of it. And of course, Auslebohan saying that it was distasteful for the president to say, tighten your belt. What one more hole can you find in your belt?